Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going back in time, back to the Wild West.
Oh, yeah.
But not for like a classic showdown at high noon or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
We're diving into the history of the Pinkerton National Detective Agency,
Okay.
a name you might associate with detectives.
Yeah,
But their story goes way beyond just solving crimes.
right.
We've got some excerpts from a Wondery podcast episode about the Pinkertons,
Uh-huh.
featuring historian Paul O'Hara, and
What's that?
it is a wild ride, let me tell you.
It really is. And you know what's so captivating about the Pinkertons is how their story
Yeah.
really intertwines with like the very fabric of America's development.
Yeah.
From its chaotic financial beginnings
Yeah.
to the rise of huge corporations and even the way the media influences public opinion.
It's true.
It's all there.
Okay, so let's set the scene.
Okay.
Imagine America in the 1800s,
Right.
no FBI,
Right.
and the financial system was basically the Wild West of money.
Yeah.
Counterfeiting was everywhere. This is where Alan Pinkerton enters the picture.
Okay.
A simple barrel maker
Yeah.
who stumbles upon a counterfeiting operation while he's out gathering wood for his barrels.
All right.
It sounds a little too good to be true.
You're picking up on something important there because O'Hara, the historian,
Yeah.
actually points out that Pinkerton might have embellished this origin story.
Oh, really?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, he was known to be quite the master of crafting his own image.
So he was already a PR pro from the beginning.
Yeah, from the get-go.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But regardless of how he got his start,
Right.
this launched him into a world with almost no formal law enforcement.
Yeah.
He wore a lot of hats at the time, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He was a sheriff's deputy, a postal agent, even worked for the railroads for a bit.
Wow.
It was a time when anyone with, some grit and determination
Yeah.
could kind of step into these roles and make a name for themselves.
He saw a need and filled it. I
Exactly.
bet the press loved that. I mean,
Oh, yeah. They ate it up.
painting him as this almost mythical figure
Yeah.
taming the Wild West.
Right.
So how did he go from chasing counterfeiters to building this massive detective agency?
Well, it's all about branding. Pinkerton really understood the power of image,
Okay.
and he was way ahead of his time in creating like a recognizable and enduring brand.
Interesting.
Think about that logo, the eye,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
and the words, "We never sleep."
It's so iconic.
Even today, like instantly recognizable.
Yeah, it really is. And it sends a powerful message.
It does.
Like always watching, always on guard.
Precisely.
But he didn't just stop at the logo.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
He carefully cultivated the image of his detectives, too.
Oh, really?
They weren't rough and tumble frontier types.
Okay.
They were educated, disciplined, and they projected this air of middle-class respectability.
So more like the gentleman detective you'd find in like a Poe or Dickens story.
Precisely. It really tacked into the public's fascination with the idea of this, like
Yeah.
refined, vine-solving, complex mysteries.
Yeah.
And Pinkerton, of course, knew how to use this fascination to his advantage.
Of course he did.
He even published his own detective stories.
What?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
And he wasn't afraid to, nudge the press in a direction favorable to his agency.
He was a marketing genius.
A true master of spin.
But every good story needs a villain, right?
That's where Jesse James comes in.
Oh, here we go.
Not just an outlaw,
Right.
but also a master of media manipulation in his own right.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. He and this journalist, John Newman Edwards, they spun a narrative
Okay.
that positioned the Pinkertons as the bad guys.
So they basically flipped the script.
Completely.
Jesse James, the Confederate hero,
Yeah.
battling this oppressive force.
You got it.
It sounds like something straight out of a Hollywood movie.
It's a classic power struggle playing out in the public eye.
Totally.
And every time the Pinkertons failed to capture James,
Yeah.
it just added fuel to that fire.
Okay, so give me an example. How did this play out in the media?
Well, take the botched raid on the James family home, for example.
Okay.
It resulted in Jesse's mother being injured,
Oh, no.
and the press went wild,
Oh, I bet.
portraying the Pinkertons as ruthless and brutal.
Talk about bad press.
Yeah, public perception was everything back then.
Just like it is today.
Oh, absolutely. And this theme of, public image versus reality,
Yeah.
this is going to keep popping up as we delve deeper into the Pinkerton story.
Okay.
But before we get to that,
Yeah.
there's another fascinating twist I want to tell you about.
Okay.
Pinkerton's decision to hire women detectives.
Wait, women detectives in the 1800s? That's pretty progressive.
Right.
Especially for that era.
It was a surprisingly forward-thinking move on Pinkerton's part.
Yeah.
He realized that women could access places that men couldn't, you know?
Okay.
They could blend in more easily. They could
Yeah.
gather information through conversations
Uh-huh.
that a man might never overhear.
I can see how that'd be a huge advantage.
Absolutely.
So who was like the standout woman detective? I'm ready to hear some spy stories.
Her name was Kate Warren, and she is definitely a figure you'll want to research on your own.
Right.
Her story and the role of women in the Pinkerton agency deserves a deep dive all its own.
Consider me intrigued.
Okay.
But for now,
Yeah.
let's shift gears a little bit and talk about a darker chapter in the Pinkertons' history.
Okay.
Their transition from detectives to strike breakers.
Right.
What led to this change in focus?
Well, this is where family dynamics
Okay.
and the changing landscape of America come into play.
Oh.
As Pinkerton's sons took over the agency,
Yeah.
they saw bigger profits
Uh-huh.
in providing armed guards for corporations,
Okay.
especially with all this labor unrest that's brewing in the late 1800s.
So it was a shift from chasing counterfeiters
Yeah.
to protecting the interests of powerful corporations.
Precisely.
Right.
And this transition really marked a turning point for the Pinkertons,
Okay.
taking them down a path that would ultimately tarnish their reputation.
I'm starting to see how their story gets really complicated.
Yeah.
So before we get into all that,
Mm-hmm.
can you break down how this strike breaking actually worked? What was their approach?
Sure. It was a two-pronged attack, really.
Okay.
They'd use their detectives to infiltrate unions
Wow.
and gather intelligence,
Oh, wow.
while their armed guards protected company property and replacement workers during strikes.
So they were essentially a private army for hire.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's pretty intense.
It was a very different time.
And I'm guessing this didn't go over well with the public.
You're right to guess that. The Pinkertons' involvement in labor disputes led to some of the most
Yeah.
violent clashes in American labor history.
Wow.
And one event in particular
Yeah.
became a defining moment for the agency.
Okay.
The Homestead Strike.
The Homestead Strike. That's a name that's stuck with me from history class, but I'm a little fuzzy on the details.
Sure.
Can you remind me why it was such a big deal?
Well, the Homestead Strike was a major turning point
Okay.
for both the labor movement and the Pinkertons.
Mm-hmm.
It was a clash between striking steelworkers
Okay.
and Pinkerton agents hired by the Carnegie Steel Company.
Wow. So they were going up against one of the most powerful industrialists of the time.
They were.
This must have been a major showdown.
It was a clash of titans, you could say.
And the images that came out of that event, like, were they shocking?
They were shocking. A private army clashing with workers,
Wow.
resulting in violence and deaths. It sparked public outrage, congressional investigations into the Pinkertons' power and tactics.
So this is where the public perception of the Pinkertons really starts to shift.
This is where the tide turns.
Mm.
And in a way, it mirrors their conflict with Jesse James,
Oh, really?
you know? Just as James and the press painted them as villains,
Right.
now labor unions take on that mantle.
Interesting.
They challenge the Pinkertons' narrative.
Yeah.
And this time, the public is listening.
Okay, so their image is taking a serious hit.
It is.
But the Pinkerton agency survived all this, right? They're still around today, aren't they?
They did survive, but they had to adapt.
Okay.
They kind of retreated from the public eye,
Yeah.
focusing more on industrial espionage
Okay.
and security work for corporations.
Interesting.
Ironically, the rise of the FBI,
Yeah.
kind of a state-sanctioned force, played a role in their survival.
It's fascinating how the very thing that they thrived in the absence of like a national law enforcement agency became their competition.
Right. Full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if they were doing all this behind the scenes work,
Mhm.
how did they end up in the headlines again? Didn't you mention a video game lawsuit?
You have a good memory.
I try.
That's right. Even as the Pinkertons faded from the public eye, they never truly disappeared.
Yeah.
And in 1999, a video game called Red Dead Redemption 2
Okay.
thrust them back into the spotlight.
Okay.
In a way no one could have predicted.
Okay, I am dying to know how a video game from 1999 connects to the Pinkertons.
Well, buckle up.
Okay.
Because this is where the story takes a truly wild turn. So in the game, you play as an outlaw,
Okay.
and you're battling, you guessed it,
I'm guessing the Pinkertons.
the Pinkertons. They're portrayed as these ruthless villains,
Okay.
you know, shaking down businesses, terrorizing townsfolk.
Uh-huh.
And the real Pinkerton agency,
Right.
still in operation as part of Securitas,
Oh, wait.
was not happy about it.
Wait, so they sued a video game company over their image?
They did.
That seems a little extreme, even for a company known for being tough.
It does, doesn't it? And of course, the lawsuit didn't go anywhere.
Right.
I mean, you can't exactly copyright historical figures,
Yeah,
even if you don't like how they're portrayed.
I guess not.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
The lawsuit, while unsuccessful,
Yeah.
actually turned into a brilliant PR move for the Pinkertons.
How so? It seems like the kind of publicity you'd want to avoid.
Think about it.
Okay.
This lawsuit, filed in 1999,
Yeah.
generated tons of press coverage.
It's true.
Suddenly, everyone was talking about the Pinkertons again.
Okay.
People who might not have even known they still existed were reminded of their name and their history.
So it was like they accidentally stumbled into a viral marketing campaign?
It's the Streisand effect in action.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I guess there's no such thing as bad publicity, right?
Sometimes I guess that's true.
It's a perfect example of how, even in the modern era, the Pinkertons are still grappling with this, complex and controversial legacy.
So let's step back for a second.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground here, from their early days chasing counterfeiters to their clashes with Jesse James and labor unions,
Right.
to their unexpected resurgence in a video game.
It's a wild ride.
It's a crazy story. What does it all mean, though?
Yeah.
Why should we care about a detective agency from the 1800s?
Well, their story, for all its wild twists and turns, actually resonates with issues we're still grappling with today.
Oh, really?
The balance of corporate power and worker rights,
Yeah.
the role of private security forces, the media's influence on how we see the world.
Yeah, that's true.
It's all there in the Pinkerton story.
It makes you think about how companies, especially ones with a long history, try to control their narratives.
They do.
Even today.
Oh, absolutely. Think about the Pinkertons trying to distance themselves from their strike-breaking past,
Right.
while still capitalizing on their name recognition.
It's true.
It's a fascinating case study in brand management.
It's a reminder that history isn't just something that happened in the past.
Right.
It's alive and well, shaping our present in ways we might not even realize.
That's so true.
It makes you wonder, how much we really know about the
Yeah.
companies and organizations that are part of our daily lives.
You're getting at a really important point there.
Oh!
Are we, as consumers of information,
Right.
discerning enough
Yeah.
to look beyond the surface and question the stories we're being told?
Wow, you're really challenging us to think critically here.
I am.
It's easy to just accept the narratives we're given, especially when they're packaged in these really compelling stories or wrapped up in iconic imagery.
Exactly. Look at the Pinkerton logo, right? The "We Never Sleep" slogan. I mean, it's still used today.
Yeah.
Even though the agency itself is part of a much larger corporation.
Yeah.
That image has a power that transcends the messy reality of their history.
It's like a cultural shorthand.
Yeah.
For a certain type of detective work, even though the reality is far more complicated.
Right.
It makes you wonder, what other symbols or narratives are we unconsciously absorbing without questioning their origins?
Exactly.
Or their deeper meaning?
This deep dive then becomes not just about the Pinkertons, but about the very nature of history itself.
Yeah.
How it's constructed, how it's manipulated, how it continues to shape our understanding of the world around us.
It's mind-boggling when you think about it that way.
It really is.
From chasing counterfeiters to battling Jesse James to clashing with labor unions to suing a video game company.
Yeah.
The Pinkertons have seen it all.
They've been through it all.
And through their story, we get this really fascinating glimpse into the forces that have shaped America.
We do.
But it's just one thread in the vast tapestry of history.
You got it. There are countless other stories waiting to be explored,
Yeah.
each one offering a unique perspective on how we got to where we are today.
You've definitely ignited a spark of curiosity in me.
That's what I like to hear.
I'm ready to dive into some more research.
That's the spirit.
Remember, history isn't just about dates and facts.
Right.
It's about people, their choices, and the ripple effects of those choices.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Pinkertons, I'm left with this question swirling around in my head.
Right.
How are we supposed to view them? Knowing everything we've discussed, their methods, their controversies, their lasting impact. Are they heroes? Are they villains? Are they something in between?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
And it's precisely what makes their story so fascinating.
Yeah.
They were a product of their time, operating in a world with very different norms and values.
Right.
But they also actively shaped that world.
Right.
You know,
They did.
for better or for worse.
It's like this constant push and pull between their role in bringing some semblance of order to a very chaotic time,
Yeah.
and then their willingness to use some, like, pretty questionable tactics,
Right.
especially during those labor disputes.
hmm What's important to remember is that history is rarely black and white.
Yeah.
It's more about,
Yeah.
and individuals and institutions navigating complex situations,
Right.
often with unintended consequences.
So as we try to make sense of it all,
Yeah,
it sounds like we need to resist those easy judgments
we do.
and embrace that complexity. And I think the Pinkertons, despite their flaws and controversies,
hmm
give us a really valuable lens through which to view American history.
I agree.
I mean, their story touches on so many, like, pivotal themes.
It does.
The evolution of law enforcement, the rise of corporate power, the fight for workers' rights, the media's role in shaping public perception. It's all there.
It's all intertwined.
It's almost overwhelming when you think about it that way.
It can be.
But it's also incredibly fascinating. I'm already thinking about all the rabbit holes I want to go down,
Yeah.
all the, like, individual stories within this bigger narrative.
There are so many.
Oh, yeah.
That's the beauty of history.
It is.
It's an endless journey of discovery.
It's true. And what I hope you take away from this deep dive
Yeah.
is that sense of curiosity, that desire to question the narratives you encounter, and a deeper appreciation for, like, the layers of complexity that make up the past.
Beautifully said.
Shucks.
Yeah.
So to wrap things up, I want to encourage everyone listening to go check out that Wondery podcast episode we mentioned.
Definitely.
It's a fantastic place to start if you want to learn more about the Pinkertons and their legacy,
It is.
which is still felt today in some ways.
Oh, absolutely. And remember, the Pinkertons are just one thread in the massive tapestry of American history.
It's true.
There are countless other stories out there waiting to be discovered, each one offering a unique perspective on how we got to where we are now.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning. That's what the deep dive is all about. Until next time, happy diving!